Welcome to City and State TV. I'm Executive Editor Michael Johnson. I'm joined today by Beth Finkel, the New York Director of AARP, or the Director of AARP New York State. And you guys have this new study out talking about retirement savings for Gen X and baby boomers. What was the reason you guys did this study? Why did you decide let's look at this issue?
Well, I think the first baby boomer, the last baby boomer to turn 50 turned it in December of last year, and the first Gen Xer to turn 50 was this year in January. So we have a whole new generation coming up, and they have come of age in a whole different era than generations before. Gen Xers have changed everything that they've gone through. They're very entrepreneurial. In fact, we would call them serial entrepreneurs. They have changed so many systems for us. So don't forget, they created Twitter, they created Amazon, they created Facebook. So, we're looking at a very dynamic generation. They were raised in an environment, and they came to work in an environment where the traditional retirement planning has totally changed. Somebody changed the game plan on them, and now we all have to be prepared as a society to help them figure out how they're going to get to a secure retirement. So that really was the impetus for this. And AARP is an organization of people 50 plus, and our desire is to have people be able to have a stable financial security future. And so who better than AARP to be able to figure out how to help people retire with dignity. So
great. And I know this report has a lot of great detailed information.
Yes,
very interesting stuff. You surveyed 400 baby boomers and 400 Gen Xers that live in New York City, and got some I guess more comprehensive look at what they're thinking about retirement and the challenges that are to retirement. I think housing was one big one. Debt was another big one. What was the thing that stuck out to you looking through the report that you felt like, hey, this is the thing you should take away, that we should really look at to help your members going forward?
So we didn't name this report high anxiety without a very important reason. 78% of Gen Xers and 66% of boomers said that they are really worried about retirement. And a huge number of them have not done any kind of planning at all. We know that the average amount of money that Americans have put away for their retirement is $12,000. What the heck is $12,000 going to buy you anymore? And they're also saddled with student debt. Affordable housing is a major issue here in New York City, and we know that. With 2 million rent-stabilized tenants, 2 million people, that's a huge chunk of New York City's population. And they've, as I mentioned before, they also have the student debt. They not only have it for themselves, particularly Gen X, they have it for themselves, but they also know that they're going to have debt for their children. In fact, for Gen Xers, 69% say they're either going to have student loans for themselves and or their children. Well, what does that mean? And then we also know that people are much less likely to save for their own retirement if it isn't attached to company savings. So again, this generation grew up without having traditional pensions in the workplace, nor do many of them have 401ks. In fact, another fact that we know is that 54% of New Yorkers who work in private industry have absolutely no retirement plans. So when you take that all together, and you also realize that, and this is the data that really kills me, that if you do not have a retirement plan for that is in the private industry from your employer, you are 15 times less likely to save for your retirement.
Yeah.
So we're setting up a generation to not be prepared for retirement. And so AARP wants to talk to policymakers. This has to be a partnership between the private sector and with government, and all of us have to get together and just figure out some solutions.
And I know that you did a similar thing with the state report you put out a
Yes.
couple months ago. You talked about that state solution and having state government be involved in a way to help private businesses provide some kind of retirement savings that's either mandatory or just allows it to be an easier process for a lot of the workers who probably want to retire, but it's difficult and they don't want to work through the process. So as you take this report and what's come out of it and the report you did on the statewide level, How do you approach lobbying to kind of get this implemented, and what's your next step, I guess?
Well, obviously, we're going to share the research as broadly as we can. We released a statewide, as you mentioned. We just did a New York specific. Coming up next, we're going to do local reports. Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester, Capital District, Long Island, each of them will get their own full separate reports, 400 boomers, 400 Gen Xers. We're going to be able to talk about exactly how people are feeling about their retirement security. And then on top of that, we have 3 more reports, one African American for Gen Xers and boomers, one for Hispanics, and one for Asian American specific islanders. So when we get done with all this, I think policymakers, academia, private sector, and people themselves are going to have to grab hold and be prepared to advocate to make sure that we get the retirement savings plans in place, a mechanism in place for those 54% of New Yorkers who are working in the private sector who have no vehicle for retirement now.
Great. Beth Finkel, thanks for joining us,
Thank
and we'll look
you.
forward to those other studies as they come out over the next couple of years, or next year, I guess.
Within the next 6 months.
Within the next 6
they'll
months,
be out.
we'll be looking for it.
All right.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much.